We are privileged to be joined by the TV voice of the Seattle Kraken, John Forslund. New bench boss for the third straight season, Lane
Yeah,
Lambert.
yeah,
I kind of feel management felt Dave Hackstall was holding the reins too tight. The
yeah,
team needed a Dan Bilesma to liven the mood, have more fun, score more goals. That didn't work. So
yeah.
now they've gone back to what I call, and I could be full of hot air, Hackstall 2.0 in Lambert. Again, a focus on detail.
Yeah.
What is your view of all that?
Well, my view is this. My view is that, and as predicted, the second year of the Kraken was basically a curse. And I say that because it teased the fans to a level that they couldn't believe. And when you get that far in the playoffs, it's an addiction. You want to get back and you want to taste that again. But most importantly, I think what it did, it teased the ownership level of the Kraken maybe too much. It didn't tease Ronnie at all. Ron Francis, not at all. He was the one guy the third year before that season started say, hey, let's put on the brakes here. We were probably ahead of the curve in the second year. And so I have always believed that. And I've always been, even in the third year of Dave Hackstall, I understand that they were struggling to score, but I never looked at the way they played defensively or systematically as an issue. And to me, that's what has to come back into play here. What I saw last season, and I think I was very outspoken about this throughout the year, was there was a distrust among the group of five in front of the goalie defensively. And because of that, the Kraken looked disorganized, gave up way too many odd man rushes, gave up too many real good high danger chances in and around the goal, and got through a season where Joey Daccord played very well, but got out of it at 24th best, I think, in terms of goals against league wide, right? Which was a big drop from the season before where they couldn't score, but they were always good defensively. Listen, we've been around a long time. And hockey's never changed. I don't think sports, by and large, are ever going to change. Defensively, that's how you're going to win in any sport. And it is cliche to say it, but it wouldn't be a cliche if it wasn't true. So, you have to get back to that foundation again. And Lane Lambert was and has been an excellent individual in terms of his coaching and where he's coached and who he's coached under, and when he had the reins on Long Island in terms of getting a team to play that way. That's what everybody in the game calls, quote unquote, the right way to play. The Kraken last season, in an effort to score and to become a little bit more explosive, and to Dan's credit, he was trying to extract that out of a team that doesn't have a lot of game-breaking talent, but they were stretching out the ice and leaving themselves victimized way too much, And unless you're going to get heroic goaltending, Vezina goaltending, that system isn't going to work.
You needed Grant Fuhr with the 80s
Yeah,
Oilers while they're
yeah,
all up
yeah.
ice.
And so what ended up happening was I saw a confused group of players, okay? And by the end of the season, they were lost. And, unfortunately, Dan was either going to have to change his philosophy or they were going to make a change. And this is where you get into the danger of all of this, because in a short period of time, as we go to year number 5, we're on the second general manager now and the third coach. That's a lot of turnover. So what has to happen here is I think everybody needs to take a deep breath, fans included. Let this kind of sink in a little bit. Let Lane do what he needs to do. Give him the license to do what he needs to do. And I do think with a little bit more organized style of play, these guys will buy in even more. And maybe what I was expecting last year was a team a lot closer to the playoff line than it was will emerge. Are the Kraken in the upper echelon of the league? No. Can they be at the playoff line? Yes. Will they get further than the playoff line? Maybe, if, all of a sudden they're playing better defensively and the offense, as they say in Canada, comes from good defensive principles, you know? And I really believe that's what I'm hanging the hat on right now, because personnel wise, I don't know. There's some changes, but it's really hard to upgrade a lot. There'll be further development of younger players, which is natural. But by and large, you're bringing a lot of the sameness back, and they're older. that could go two ways. They could look it, or they could play better as a team. And I'm going to lean on that for now until proven otherwise, because I do believe Lane, at his age and in the amount of experience he has a lot to prove that he can be his own guy. And, this is going to be interesting to watch.
That dead horse over there is the one I've been beating, saying that in season 3, Hackstall switched to a more defensive system when he realized his team couldn't score a lot. And if
Right.
you want to win games
That's
and you
it.
don't have elite scorers,
That's
then
it.
you have to keep the other team from scoring.
Listen, the Carolina Hurricanes try to keep the score down, and they got a lot more talent, to be fair, than the Kraken do. The Florida Panthers play every which way but loose. They play every which way you want to play, and that's why they're two-time trying to become a three-peater as Stanley Cup champions. So, we're looking at a dynasty there with that style of play. What we're looking at here, most importantly for our fans, is what does this all mean? What this means is the nucleus is not bad. The younger players turning the corner and making the grade is intriguing. You still have to be careful with that. That's still something that cannot be rushed. I can't stress that enough. And I know that, Ron will get some criticism for that, but he is absolutely right about that. And, that's where you have to have faith sometimes. And you mentioned the fact about fun. The only way to have fun is to win. If you and I are playing Yahtzee, and I'm a mean Yahtzee player, I'm having fun if I'm winning. I'm not happy if I lose. That's just the way it is. So that type of vibe change is a lot of what. I don't buy into that stuff. I really believe that the players, especially in this generation, are yearning for informational value that'll lead them to trust. Why was this team 0-12 in back-to-backs? Because I thought their system was not good enough. That's why. Had nothing to do with conditioning, travel, opponent based. If your system is locked tight and you're tired and injured and the opponent's better, you can go into their barn and play a boring game and get some saves. Next thing you know, you get a power play, get a goal. Next thing you know, you get a bounce, you get a goal. Now it's 2-0. Somehow you win the game, or at least get a point. That's how the great teams in the NHL win in tough scheduling situations like the back-to-backs that are always talked about. But you have to be sound as a team in order to get there. And to me, that's the biggest adjustment. I can't wait to watch the practices, to see them kind of get back to that again and to get their 5-man game in place. And if it is, they have a chance.
What I hope is that the players who were here in year 2 and year 3, and maybe if they felt a little stifled having to play defense first, now they've seen what happens when they're allowed to be loosey-goosey all over the ice, and maybe they'll have a new appreciation for taking care of the details, and then offense will come from defense.
Well, that's true too. And the other thing they have to do as a group, in my opinion, is get to the hard areas of the ice better. Marchment hopefully will deliver that way. Kako hopefully can continue to improve that way. But if you have some size, if Newman makes the team, if you have some size attached to your game, go there. Schwartz goes there, and he's not very big, but he's a great pro, and will try his best. But he needs help. He needs some help that way. And as a group, they're too much on the outside for me, and that's going to have to. And Jason Bottrell has talked about that, which was encouraging to hear during the offseason. They got to extract more. And so the battle drills at training camp are going to be really important. Um, uh, Repetition and drills that are going to lead you to those areas of the ice, getting to the rebound, doing those things over and over again. That's going to have to get pulled out of these guys because they've been used to playing a certain way, which is very much on the periphery for me. They've changed the personnel a little bit, which is good. Now we'll see, where that goes. And they did the best they could with an acquisition of Marchment, an acquisition of Freddie Gaudreau. That's gonna give them, a little bit of different look to the forward group than we saw in the past. But we can't mistake that there is a lot of the same still here, and they're going to have to extract more of that play out of it.
I thought that Botterill had a good off season. I mean, if it
Yeah,
was easy to acquire Mitch Marner, everybody would do it.
right.
But I thought Marchman and Goudreau and Ryan Lindgren, I thought these are all, if they can stay healthy, solid additions who will address some of last year's weaknesses.
Yes, yes. Now in Marchman's case, I believe he was second on the Stars to Jamie Benn in terms of hits. And he can be a menace on the ice when he wants to be. So I'm being as objective and as fair with our fans as possible. He is brought in as a big body presence who will play in the interior of the ice. That is the description. And where Mason has fallen off, and he's had a lot of good because he can be a 20-plus goal scorer, and most of those goals are going to come in tight. He can be a real piece on a power play, but his physical game at times, the people that I've seen and people that I've talked to that followed him on a regular basis, it comes and goes a little bit. If he can dial in more consistently that way, that's going to help the Kraken in a big way, and him because he's on an expiring contract. So
The contract year.
he's got a lot to prove because I did
Yeah.
see a lot of him in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay. And to be honest with you, one of the things we would always talk about in the morning would be, is Marchman hurt? Why aren't we seeing more of what they need in this series? And the Stars kind of were starting to run out of it a little bit, as they went along, and they needed more of that. And he took some penalties that were undisciplined, and he's got to knock that out of his game. But he's a good player. I knew his dad very well back in the day, the late Brian Marchment. He comes from
Well, Mason is mild compared to
right.
Brian.
Brian was a totally different guy in a totally different generation, but Mason is a competitor and he has those instincts in him. I know he does. And so that's going to be a good thing. Freddie is a Swiss Army knife. Like, this is a guy that can move all over the lineup. I scored 18 goals last year, decent in the faceoff circle, but it's a right-handed option, which they need to complement Shane Wright. He'll kill penalties. He is a power play option if they want to go there. He did it with Minnesota. He could do it with the Kraken. And he's a terrific character piece, So I think he'll find his spot where you want to play him. If you have to bump him up in the order, he can handle it. He can play with good players. If he slots in as a third, fourth line player, that's okay too, because that's a vital role. It's been a weakness, as you look at the bottom six of the Kraken over the last couple of seasons, a weakness. It needs to be more consistent. You just can't have pieces there. You have to have guys who have roles and accept those roles. That's vitally important. And Lindgren's got to stay healthy. You're right. But he plays with a badge of honor, a courageous honor. He'll block shots. He'll be physical. My hope is that there's enough gas in the tank. But it's a good move. It's a good move to go after something like that and then see, how he plays if it is with Montour, how that works out. And but he's a pro's pro. There's no doubt about it.
John Philip Grubauer seems like such a stand-up guy. His
Yeah.
teammates want him to succeed. The fans want to root for him. But I think it was Maya Angelou who said, when a goalie shows you who he is, believe him. So in his fifth Kraken season, is it reasonable, maybe with a new goalie coach, that Grubauer can still find a better version of himself in net?
The answer to that is we don't really know. I could come up with an easy yes, but we don't really know, and here's why. This is the first season. This is the first season where I would say, to help Grubauer, you are number two, period. And if you don't perform well at some point, you may not be number two. because maybe Matt Murray can have a resurgence in his career and provide some organizational depth. We'll see. But to be fair to this topic right now, in every other season, it was either a dead heat or it's Philip Grubauer's number one job and somebody else is going to have to wrestle it from him. Now, it's interesting. I would say to lay it out this way, because for Joey to continue to develop and take another step, this will be the first year that he's expected to be the number one goalie. And this is the first season that Philip is expected to be subordinate to him. Now, they're both close enough, in my opinion, if Grubauer is in really good shape and dialed in and mentally adjusted, where they can still share, because there are very few teams that can just rely on one goalie. You know, we're talking about elite Connor Hellebuck, Bobrovsky, Vasilevsky, Shesterkin. We're talking elite goalies when you're going there. Most of the teams are in tandem or close to. And so the second guy's got to play and play well. And so, but I think if it's defined, it's different, because then Grubauer's got to realize that now. And he's not feeling, I'm not going to speak for him because only he could answer it, but maybe feeling sorry for himself, maybe losing his confidence, maybe being injured and playing through an injury to stay where he thinks he needs to be for the team. You know, I think, as you will agree, Philip Grubauer is an outstanding individual who bears the burden of this contract more than the fans probably want to get or you and I get. He probably wants to make good on all this. And to me, in a way, the second season, in the second half of the year in the playoffs, he did.
Yeah.
Because until Joey gets there, Philip Grubauer has made the most impact to date.
Yeah.
Now, Joey's had a nice run here and is burgeoning, but he needs to perform in the playoffs. Grubauer did that, right? So I think it's a totally different animal. To me, it's a 1-2-3, no question about it. Doesn't matter what they do in training camp. It matters that, you know, Joey will start opening night. Philip will be the next guy. Joey's likely to play against Vegas night number 2. And then when they get on the road, we can go from there. But in years past, it's been Grubauer, let's get him ready, and then kind of live through a so-so preseason. And then this young kid looks pretty good. And then they're back in the day when Martin Jones was there. You know, like there's a lot of cloudiness. And to me, this is a season where there are no clouds. It's 1-2-3, period. It might not end that way, but that's for all players involved in this, including Murray. That's the way it should be, in my opinion.
On the subject of the Botterials, one of your national TV analysts has been the three-time women's hockey gold medalist, Jennifer Botterill. So what intel have you gotten out of Jennifer about her brother?
Not a lot. You know, they're two peas in a pod. They, you know, they have a tight family, a great family. I've known Jason a long time. As you know, I used to work with Trip Tracy in Carolina, and Trip and Jason played together at Harvard. So I've known Jason a long time. I've seen him as a player, a young executive, assistant manager with Pittsburgh, and so on, all the way up. And Jen, I've really gotten to know the last few years as a colleague. All I know is that they both share similar qualities and how driven they both are. They're both exceptionally driven people that want to succeed and have. And I know Jason is digging into this opportunity. He wants to, you know, put his stamp on the team, and I think it's evolving. I think, you know, I'd like to see the Kraken maybe make another move. You know, maybe it comes in training camp. Who knows? But I see a lot of similarities in terms of demeanor. And I know Jen, the way she approaches broadcasting, it's the same way she approached being a player, you know, with the same passion and preparation and commitment to it. And that's all you're looking for.
We'll close with this. On a league-wide level, who are the players and teams and storylines that intrigue you heading into the 25-26 season? And if you need a minute to think about it,
No,
go ahead.
I don't think I do. I think what we're going to see this year I've just finished. I take about a month, before I get out to Seattle to go through every team and get my situation, my mind back in play with where everybody lands through free agency. This season, there wasn't a lot of significant change across the league. So as I lay out the league, I look a lot of the same teams that are in cycles. And we talk. I never use the term rebuilding. I look at recycling your franchise because with the salary cap, since it's been instituted in '05, teams have gone through about 10-year cycles of bad and good, right? So the same teams are still in a window to go for it. I'm very interested to see how Vegas looks. We'll take the West first, with Mitch Marner and how that applies. The loss of Alex Petrangelo, it looks like, his career may be over. What kind of difference that makes on the back end. How they support the two best players going in McDavid and Draisaitl in Edmonton. It seems like they have a lot of the same questions they've always had. Can the LA Kings in our division, make a more of a jump, with what they had, how disappointed they were, and how it ended? There have been a few changes there. We'll see how that plays out in the Central. Dallas has changed coaches. We had Glenn Gullitz in one. Now we get 2.0. I don't know what that is. Winnipeg will be good again. Colorado, decent to very good to elite again. So I see a lot of the sameness there. And in the East, as I go through it, Florida to me has to be completely knocked out as a champion. As Howard Cosell would say, you knock out the champ, right? You don't win on points. You don't win
Oh, you
technical
got to put a
knockouts.
stake through their heart.
You do. And until somebody does that, Florida will get through the Kachuk injury, will get through their season as they did last year, and then go for it again. And I think they're good enough to win 3 in a row. I really do. And then there's other teams that, you look at in the East, the best division being the Atlantic, the Metro being weak, in my opinion, and kind of, Carolina, okay, they win it on paper every year, but they can't get to the next level. So I see a lot of the sameness there. But the last thing I'll say is this: with the Olympics being involved this season,
Yeah.
you're going to get A quality performances from star players who are either on it or not there yet or want to be on it. And that will push the play of the regular season. I'm a little guarded because the schedule is compressed because of the Olympics. So, you don't want to see a lot of injury either. But I do expect this to be another exciting season where we'll be gifted with best on best hockey in February. And that's great for the game.
I think Joey Daccord is one of those because
Right.
if Jake Ottinger stumbles, if Jeremy Swayman
Yeah.
stumbles, uh,
Yeah.
Joey
Yeah.
could be playing for a trip to Italy.
Well, the thing about that is that's right. And I would say that, for me, Hellebuck and Ottinger are givens. But I would say that Swayman, based on his year last year, and he's saying all the right things, but he still has to deliver on a team that's not, to me, very good. A team that's recycling. You know, what will his numbers look like? And if things fall into place for the Kraken and they play a staunch defensive system and they like their new coach and there's this revitalization of hope with the players, that's all that matters here. Never mind us or the fans. We're important, but the players have to have this renewed energy. It might benefit Joey a lot. And then you're right. Joey is in a good place because he performed well in the World Championships and he's on the radar of USA Hockey. So that's good. So those are the carrots that'll be out there all season for all the players with this being an Olympic year.
Well, I just love that you ended with carrots.
Yes. I love carrots, by the way.
And I won't ask you to comment on this because we need to go, but I think I recall with Joey, and I agree that right now Jake Ottinger's way ahead of him on the depth chart for Team
Yeah.
USA. But I remember at the end of last season looking at the game notes for a late season Kraken versus Stars game, and I was so surprised that Ottinger, with a much stronger
Yeah.
Dallas team in front of him,
Yep.
and cord at that moment, they had the same exact save percentage
Yeah.
down to the thousandth of a percent. It was like
Yeah.
0.906 for both. And I was like, well, if Ottinger is considered elite, and this is with what Joey has had to
Yeah.
go through with his team, then I don't think Joey's very far behind.
He isn't really. And then you get into their makeup. Both are really driven guys, but they're in different spots. Like Jake has been paid and he's cut his teeth and he's established. And as you know, a lot of this is reputation, when it comes to decisions that are made. But with Decord, he's still kind of an outlier, but not really. He's in the room. By
Yeah,
going to the orientation camp, he's in the room.
yeah,
And if you know anything about Joey, which we do, um, the story of his life is what's pushing him
mhm,
because he's always been that. He's always been trying to get to a place where maybe he wasn't considered, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so this is right in his wheelhouse. Really
yeah.
is.
Him and Tom Brady, both picks 199.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to speak to the people watching this, John. There's this old saying, don't meet your heroes, because too often the person doesn't match up to the performer. But I want to tell everybody it's safe to meet John Forslund,
I hope so.
because he is a better person than he is a broadcaster, and that's a damn high bar. And
Thank you,
John,
Ben.
I can't tell you how much it means to me that you've spent all this time with us. You're so generous. And I went back over a year of your social media researching this, and you're so not, you make everybody feel important when they are your focus, whether they come to the booth, whether they're giving you comments, even people who criticize you, you're decent with. And
I
I,
hope so.
I just, I just want to say to you, you're a good man, John Forsland.
Thank you very much, Glenn. And it's a mutual feeling. And I love, the fact that we've been able to cross paths like this. And I also appreciate every time I do come on with you, you ask something personal, which means a lot to me, and I appreciate that. But Ralph and Yolanda Forsland in Springfield, Massachusetts raised me, I hope, the right way. And they're looking down at my career and my life now, and I'm here because of them. And that's how we're supposed to be, right? We're supposed to treat others like you want it back. And the world's not a great place at times, but we can attempt to make it a good place. We can.
Well, the only thing better for me would be if you liked me and didn't like anybody else. That's really what I want. But if you have to go with, I'm going to try to be nice to everybody, okay, I'll take you that way.
The only one that gets me is Edzo, and he'll cross my hairs, and he sees a different side of me, especially if it's on a 6 a.m. flight somewhere. So you can just imagine what that's like.
Well, I will look forward to seeing you below the chest
Yeah.
uh, at Kraken Camp. And I, every time I cross paths with you, it is a pleasure for me. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Glenn, and we'll see you. I can't wait to start this season once again. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.